Ready for a deep dive.
Sure.
One that might kind of turn your whole idea of like getting things done upside down.
Oh, yeah.
Today, we're tackling Ayn Rand
Okay.
and her take on productiveness.
Okay.
And trust me, this goes way beyond, those like generic time management tips.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is the real deal.
Absolutely.
So we're really excited to have you here
It's a pleasure to be here.
to talk about this.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going to be diving into some excerpts
Yeah.
that really kind of like break down her philosophy on this.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, the idea that she considered like idleness,
Oh, wow.
almost moral failing,
Interesting.
has me seriously curious.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin with that?
Well, it all starts with understanding that for Ayn Rand, productiveness was this driving force of human nature.
Okay.
It wasn't just about working hard or, being busy.
Right.
It was about creation, about aligning your actions with your deepest values.
Oh.
She saw it as a responsibility,
A responsibility.
not to society,
Okay.
but to yourself,
Yeah, interesting.
to live a life of purpose and meaning.
Okay, so it's not just about like building a business or climbing the corporate ladder.
Okay.
We're talking about something
Deeper
deeper than just,
than just being a productivity machine.
yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Think of it more as like a creative force,
Yeah.
a way to bring your unique vision to life. And it applies to any field, not just business.
Okay.
Imagine a scientist working tirelessly in the lab to make a breakthrough discovery, or an artist pouring their soul into a painting, even a philosopher developing new ideas.
Oh.
For Ayn Rand, these are all expressions of this vital human drive to create.
So you're saying that drive to create is somehow like fundamental to our survival as humans?
Yeah, that's right.
Really?
Rand drew this fascinating link between productiveness and our very survival as a species.
Okay.
Unlike animals who rely primarily on instinct, we humans have the capacity to think,
Right.
to plan, and to shape the world around us. Productiveness for Rand was the ultimate expression of this ability.
Wait, so you're telling me my weekend baking project is basically me channeling my inner survivalist?
It might sound unusual, but
I kind of like that.
think about it.
Okay.
Whether you're baking a cake or building a skyscraper, you're using your mind to transform raw materials into something new, something that reflects your vision.
Okay.
For Rand, that act of creation, that's striving to bring your ideas to life, is at the core of what it means to be human.
Okay, that's starting to click for me. Now, I know Ayn Rand was a huge proponent of self-reliance,
Absolutely.
and I can see how this intense focus on productiveness
Yeah.
ties into that.
Yeah.
But how does self-esteem fit into this equation?
Yeah, for Ayn Rand, self-esteem wasn't something you were just born with. It wasn't about empty affirmations or ego stroking.
Right.
It came from the proof that you could achieve your goals, that you were capable of creating something of value in the world.
Okay.
And that proof came from your actions, from your engagement in productive work.
So it's about having the confidence that comes from knowing you can actually walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Exactly.
That feeling when you finally finish a project you've been working on, you're like, yeah, I did that.
Precisely.
Yes.
It's that deep down sense of satisfaction that comes from knowing you're not just coasting through life, but actively shaping it, using your talents and abilities to bring your vision to reality.
Now, this is where I'm guessing things might get a little controversial, because when most people hear Ayn Rand, they think money, capitalism, greed is good, that whole image.
Right.
But you're saying that for her, it wasn't really about the money.
Right. You're right. She gets mischaracterized a lot. While Rand certainly saw the value of free markets and economic success,
Right.
she wasn't advocating for a mindless pursuit of wealth.
Okay.
For her, money was a byproduct of productive work, a means to an end, not the end goal itself.
Okay.
Productiveness was about aligning your efforts with your own values and purpose, regardless of the financial reward.
Okay, now that definitely challenges how we usually think about success.
Yeah.
So, if money wasn't the main motivator, what was? What was the end game for Ayn Rand?
Ultimately, I think it was about happiness.
Happiness.
But not the fleeting kind of happiness you get from a vacation or a shopping spree.
Ooh, intriguing.
Right.
Tell me more.
For Ayn Rand, True happiness came from living a life of purpose,
Okay.
from expressing your potential through productive creative work that was deeply meaningful to you.
Mm.
It was about that feeling of deep fulfillment that comes from knowing you're not just existing, but truly living,
Yeah.
creating, achieving, constantly striving to become the best version of yourself.
So we're talking about more than just a fleeting sense of pleasure.
Yeah.
It's about a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment that comes from using your unique talents to make a mark on the world.
You got it.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that each of us has something unique to offer, and that the act of creating and contributing is not only beneficial to the world around us, but deeply fulfilling to ourselves.
This is already making me rethink my whole approach to work and even my hobbies.
That's great.
It's like you said earlier, that drive to create can apply to anything, whether it's writing a novel, building a furniture piece, or even mastering a new recipe.
Absolutely.
But there's another layer to this whole productiveness as a moral duty thing that I'm still grappling with.
Right.
You said that Rand believes we owe this duty to ourselves.
Exactly. This is one of the most challenging aspects of her philosophy, and one that's often misunderstood.
Yeah.
For Rand, we weren't obligated to be productive because we owed it to society or to some external authority.
Okay.
It was about recognizing the inherent value of our own lives and the incredible potential that lies within each of us.
So Rand had this almost radical idea that, like, squandering your potential is a kind of betrayal, not to society, but to yourself.
Right.
What do you make of that?
It's a powerful idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
It challenges us to really examine how we're spending our time and energy, and to ask ourselves if we're truly living up to our own potential.
This has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
It's almost like she's saying, don't waste your life. You have so much to offer, so get out there and make something of yourself.
Right.
But I also have to wonder, how does this emphasis on individual achievement fit in with the idea of social responsibility?
Yeah.
I mean, if everyone is so focused on themselves, doesn't that create a kind of every man for himself mentality?
That's a common criticism of Ayn Rand's work, and it's worth exploring. While she was a fierce advocate for individualism and self-reliance, she didn't advocate for a world devoid of compassion or cooperation. In fact,
Hold that thought. I think this is a great place to pause and pick up the conversation in part 2 of our deep dive into Ayn Rand's Productiveness.
okay,
You won't want to miss what comes next.
sounds good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Ayn Rand's, like, radical take on productiveness.
Yeah.
Right before the break, we were getting into some potentially controversial territory.
Yeah.
Specifically how this, like, fierce individualism
Right.
fits into the bigger picture of society. Right. So I'm ready to unpack this.
Yeah, great, because here's where I think Ayn Rand gets unfairly simplified.
Okay.
Yes, she championed individual achievement,
Right.
but she also saw how a society full of, like, productive-driven individuals actually benefits everyone.
Okay. Help me connect those dots, because
Yeah.
at first glance, it seems like everyone striving for their own goals might lead to a pretty competitive, maybe even cutthroat environment.
Yeah, but here's the twist. Even though Rand was all about self-reliance, she wasn't advocating for a dog-eat-dog world.
Okay.
She believed that when individuals are free to pursue their passions and talents, they naturally create things of value.
Yeah.
Inventions, businesses, art knowledge
Right.
that ultimately benefit society as a whole.
So it's like that rising tide lifts all boats idea.
Exactly.
Even if someone's primary focus is on their own goals,
Yeah.
their achievements can create, like, positive ripple effects
Absolutely.
throughout the community.
Yeah, think about it. Groundbreaking innovations,
Okay.
life-saving medical breakthroughs, even the simple joy we get from a beautiful piece of music.
Yeah.
These all come from individuals pursuing their own creative visions.
So even though Rand's philosophy puts the individual front and center,
Right.
it's not about shutting yourself off from the world.
Right.
In a way, it's about making your unique contribution to the world.
Precisely. And that's what makes her concept of productiveness so fascinating and I think so relevant today. It's a call to action,
Yeah.
an invitation to tap into our own potential, not just for personal gain, but for the betterment of society as a whole.
You know, as we're talking, I can't help but think of someone like Elon Musk, love him or hate him.
Right.
He's definitely someone driven by a vision,
Yeah,
pushing boundaries in technology and space exploration.
for sure.
Whether or not you agree with everything he does, it's hard to deny the impact his work has on the world.
He's a perfect example, and you see this same drive in countless other fields.
Oh, yeah.
Artists pushing creative boundaries, entrepreneurs building new businesses, scientists working tirelessly to solve global challenges.
Yeah.
They're all driven by this inner fire to create, to achieve, to leave their mark on the world.
This is making me rethink how I view not just like work in the traditional sense,
Right.
but all the things I'm passionate about.
Sure.
It's like you said earlier, that drive to create can apply to anything,
Absolutely.
whether it's writing a novel,
Yeah.
building a furniture piece, or even mastering a new recipe.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another key aspect of Rand's philosophy,
Okay.
the emphasis on process as much as the outcome. For her, the act of creating, of bringing something new into the world was inherently fulfilling. It wasn't just about reaching the finish line. It was about the journey itself.
So it's not just about checking things off a to-do list,
Right.
but about embracing the challenges,
Yeah.
the problem solving, the constant striving to improve.
Exactly. Think about those times you felt most alive, most engaged. It's often when we're tackling a tough problem, stretching our abilities, pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zones.
Right.
For Rand, that struggle, that constant striving to learn and grow, was a crucial part of the productive process.
That actually resonates with me a lot.
Yeah.
I know whenever I finally master a new skill, it's not just the end result that feels good.
Right.
It's that feeling of, I figured this out. I pushed through the frustration, and now I'm capable of something I wasn't before.
Precisely. It's about discovering what you're truly capable of.
Yeah.
And that process of self-discovery is a powerful motivator in itself.
Okay, so we've talked about the individual drive,
Yeah.
the societal impact, the process of creation.
Right.
But there's still this one piece of the puzzle I'm trying to wrap my head around.
Okay.
Rational self-interest.
Ah, yes. Another concept that gets misconstrued a lot. People hear self-interest and immediately think selfishness, greed, stepping on others to get ahead.
Right.
But that's a very limited view.
So how did Ayn Rand define rational self-interest? What did she mean by that?
For Rand, rational self-interest was about living a life that was true to your own values and goals, pursuing your passions, developing your talents, and creating something of value in the world.
Okay.
It wasn't about being selfish or exploiting others.
Right.
It was about recognizing that each of us has a right to pursue our own happiness and fulfillment.
So it's not about me first at the expense of everyone else.
Right.
It's about understanding that you have to take care of yourself,
Yeah.
invest in your own growth
Yeah.
in order to truly contribute to the world around you.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that your own happiness and well-being are not in conflict with the well-being of others. In fact, they can be mutually reinforcing.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Yeah.
It's about being self-reliant, pursuing your passions, creating something of value, and ultimately contributing to a better world.
Absolutely.
But I have to admit, this whole idea of productiveness as a moral duty still feels a bit intense. Does that mean Ayn Rand thought we should be working all the time? No rest, no play?
That's a common misconception.
Oui.
While Rand certainly valued hard work and dedication, she also recognized the importance of rest and rejuvenation.
Okay, good. So she wasn't advocating for a life of endless toil with no time for fun.
Not at all. For Rand, leisure wasn't about escaping from work or shirking your responsibilities.
Yeah.
It was about recharging your batteries so you could return to your pursuits with renewed energy and focus.
So it's like a strategic retreat, a chance to step back, reflect, gather your energy for the next challenge.
Precisely. Even the most driven individuals need time to relax, recharge, and engage in activities that bring them joy and inspiration.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
Even the most productive people need to take care of themselves both physically and mentally
Yeah.
in order to sustain that creative energy over the long term.
Exactly. And for Rand, this self-care wasn't about indulgence or laziness.
Right.
It was about recognizing that true productivity requires balance, that we need to take care of ourselves in order to fully express our potential.
This is giving me a lot to chew on. Ayn Rand's take on productiveness is so much more nuanced and complex than I initially thought.
It definitely is, and we've only just scratched the surface.
That's right. We still need to explore some of the potential criticisms of Rand's philosophy and how her ideas might be applied in a practical way to our lives.
Definitely important points to consider.
Well, listeners, it looks like we've got a lot more ground to cover. We'll be back in just a moment to wrap up our deep dive into Ayn Rand's productiveness with part 3, so don't go anywhere. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Ayn Rand's productiveness.
Yeah.
This conversation has really pushed me to rethink some of my own assumptions
Right.
about work success,
Yeah.
even happiness.
For sure, one that often sparks debate.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground from the link between productiveness and survival
Right.
to this idea of aligning our actions with our values. But I think it's important to acknowledge that not everyone embraces Ayn Rand's ideas.
Right.
In fact, she has her fair share of critics.
For sure.
So what are some of the main criticisms leveled against her philosophy?
Well, one of the most common criticisms is that Rand's emphasis on individualism
Yeah.
can sometimes neglect the role of social factors in shaping our lives.
So the argument is that it's not always a level playing field,
Right.
that some people face greater obstacles due to like systemic inequalities
Yeah.
or lack of opportunities.
Some people may start with fewer resources, face discrimination, or encounter other barriers that make it much harder to achieve their goals.
Right. And in those situations, simply saying, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and be productive can sound kind of insensitive and out of touch.
Yeah, it's like telling someone who's struggling to make ends meet that they just need to work harder.
Right.
It ignores the very real systemic issues that can hold people back.
Which is a valid point, and it's important to acknowledge those systemic factors and work towards creating a more just and equitable society.
Absolutely.
However, I think it's also important to remember that Rand wasn't advocating for a complete disregard for others or a rejection of compassion.
Right.
So it's more nuanced than just saying every man for himself.
Absolutely. While she championed individual responsibility, she also believed in voluntary cooperation and mutual benefit.
Hmm.
For Rand, the ideal society wasn't one where everyone was ruthlessly competing against each other,
Okay.
but one where individuals were free to pursue their own goals while also respecting the rights and freedoms of others.
So there's room for compassion and helping others within her philosophy.
Absolutely. In fact, Rand saw productive individuals as the ones most likely to contribute to the well-being of others.
Okay.
Not out of a sense of duty or obligation, but out of a genuine desire to create value and make a positive impact.
Just kind of going back to that ripple effect.
Exactly.
Sacrificial achievement.
When people are empowered to pursue their passions and contribute their talents,
Right.
it creates a positive chain reaction that benefits the whole community.
Okay, that makes sense. It's not about ignoring those who are struggling, but about recognizing that individual empowerment can ultimately lead to a more prosperous and compassionate society.
Exactly. And I think it's important to engage with all philosophical ideas critically,
Right.
to acknowledge both their strengths and limitations,
Yeah.
and to consider how they might be applied in a way that's both empowering and compassionate.
That's a great point. It's not about blindly accepting or rejecting an entire philosophy,
Right.
but about taking the insights that resonate with us
Yeah,
and integrating them into our own lives
for sure.
in a way that feels authentic and meaningful.
Precisely. And that's the beauty of philosophy. It's
Yeah.
not about finding all the answers,
Mm,
but about asking the right questions and engaging in thoughtful dialogue.
right.
It's about challenging our assumptions,
Yeah.
expanding our perspectives, and ultimately striving to live more intentional and fulfilling lives.
Well said. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into Ayn Rand's productiveness,
Right.
what are some key takeaways that our listeners can apply to their own lives?
I think the biggest takeaway is that productiveness, as Rand envisioned it, is about so much more than just churning out work
Right.
or chasing external markers of success.
Yeah.
It's about a mindset, an attitude towards life. It's about recognizing your own potential
No.
and striving to make the most of your talents and abilities, not just for your own benefit, but for the world around you.
It's about aligning your actions with your values, embracing the journey of growth and self-discovery, and finding deep satisfaction in the act of creating and contributing.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that true fulfillment comes not from chasing external validation, but from living a life that feels authentic and meaningful to you.
So, dear listeners, as you go about your day, consider how this concept of productiveness might reshape your approach to work,
Yeah.
your passions,
Yeah.
even your sense of purpose.
Remember, it's not about achieving some arbitrary standard of success, but about finding your own unique path, embracing the journey and making your mark on the world in a way that only you can.
It's about recognizing that you have something valuable to offer and that the world is a better place when you share your gifts.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and keep diving deep.